Hey everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I'm Father Roderick, and I'm using a new camera that I'm very excited about for this live stream. And I'm going to talk more about it in the weekly show that I'm about to record. Before I do that, let me quickly post a link to this feed on social media, that is to say on Facebook and on Twitter. Still haven't found an easy way to do that. I think I have to go to Studio Beta in YouTube, go to the live tab, tap the, is there even a live tab? Okay. And then copy the URL. It's like 5 steps. I haven't figured it out how to do this in a better way. It's warm here in the studio, by the way. I hope where you live, it is not as hot as here. It's really terrible. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be podcasting, but I have to. It's now or never because the rest of the week is so busy. So, TweetDeck. Everything is so slow when you're in a hurry. I literally have about 30 minutes to record a show because Inge needs to post it, and she only has limited time left. Join me for this week's show live on YouTube. Paste and clickety-click. Of course, in the meantime, people have time to join the stream, so welcome. 35 degrees in Belgium. That's bloody hot as well. I think it's around the same temperature here. Inside, slightly lower temperature. Upstairs, where Inge and Maarten are working, I think it's even worse than outside. All right, let's post this here on the page, and then we're good to go. All right, share it, and let's get on with it. Hey, Dirk. Hey, Iker and Arky. I'm good. How are you? Good to see you online. All right. I have no show notes today, so that's going to be fun. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but we'll do it anyway. All right, here we go. Wait, what do? I press record on this thing. Yes. Double check the audio. That's fine. Sounds fine. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome from a very hot and summerly studio here in the Netherlands. I'm Father Roderick, and you're listening to my weekly show recorded at, 35 degrees Celsius. That's in the 90s Fahrenheit. But on with the show. As usual, this episode is brought to you thanks to my patrons over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. It's a small but very, very supportive community that helps me pay for the bandwidth, for the equipment that I use, for the software that I use. I'm going to be talking about a new little piece of software, an app that I'm using currently to stream, which is very cool. I didn't even know it was possible. But all that is co-financed, made possible by my patrons, and as a thank you, I record a special episode of my show for them every week, where I go over questions that people may have. I give some behind-the-scenes information, so if you want to have access to that, just join the patrons over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. You can already become a patron for as little as $1 a month.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
As you know, I'm recording this in the studios downstairs in Amersfoort, and I have a small room that I use. It's adequate. It's not fantastic, and in the past I used this in conjunction with a green screen, so I would project basically any image. But I kind of stepped away from that because it was a lot of workload on the computer. It was also a hassle to set up. And there is something about a real life set that I like. It feels more real, feels more personal. but didn't really have the time to properly decorate it. So there's a kind of a do-it-yourself set behind me. It's just a couple of cupboards from IKEA, but they're very dark, and so I put some geeky stuff there just to kind of dress it up a little bit, but it's nothing compared to what it could be. Upstairs is even worse. Upstairs, it really looks like an abandoned apartment, which is what it is, because I abandoned this apartment last year when I moved to the rectory in the other part of town, and we've constantly developed plans on cleaning it up and painting it and making it much more like a real office, and also add some new studio rooms to create a room where we can record talk shows. We want to create a studio kitchen where we can record live cooking shows. But that is a lot of work. And finally, now that it's summertime, we've started the process of doing that. So we had an electrician this morning who's going to help us kind of update a little bit of the electricity upstairs, because this is a building that dates back to the 1950s in the previous century. So a lot of that has to be redone. And then, of course, we need to start to design the different rooms and the different sets. So I've been doing quite a bit of work on that this week, and the next couple of weeks before I go on vacation, we're going to work on that. So if you're in the area and you want to, you're handy and you want to help us with that, let us know. We could always use some people that are they're better at this than I am, actually. And if you want to hear a little bit more about those plans, take a look at or take a listen to the most current episode of The Walk. I think it's 237 that you can find over at trideo.com. That is where you can where I talk a little bit more about what's going on and all those plans. I won't bore you with this. I got to keep this show short in general because I have a little less time than normal. Everyone here at the office is going home a bit early because of those high temperatures. There's a heat wave going on in Europe. And so I'm going to keep this show short so Inge can edit it and put it online for you to listen to. And, well, if you've downloaded this and you're listening to this in your podcast software, then we made it. Let's talk movies and TV shows.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl and that kid sees dead people and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
I've got both a TV show and a movie for you in store for today's show. And let's start with the TV show. You know that in a couple of weeks from now, I think in the beginning of July, we will get the third season of one of the best television shows out there, Stranger Things. It's the famous kind of Steven Spielberg kind of a television series that wowed everyone with the looks, with the great script, and most of all, the amazing acting by the child actors in that series. It is, if you've never heard of the series, well, I bet you there's not one single listener that hasn't heard of the series, but perhaps you haven't watched it yet. It is, it feels very much like a kind of a science fiction / horror type of television series, very much in the style of those 80s. Think E.T., think Super 8, which actually was a much more recent movie, but was an homage to that visual style. Think Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Perhaps the Stranger Things is closest to Close Encounters in the way it's filmed, the way it's the storytelling goes. It's a brilliant recreation of the 80s, the kind of the decade where I grew up. So if you want to know what my childhood looks like, check out these kids in Stranger Things. I was one of those kids. I could have, even the hair, I had hair like the kids in that series. If you don't believe me, I'll post a photo on social media later. But I had exactly the same hair as the boys in that series. And so the third season, everyone is looking forward to it. But I have to be honest, I hadn't checked out the second series yet. I loved the first season. I started watching, I think, the first episode, and then other stuff got in the way. There's so much on my to-watch list. So just the other day, I started to watch season 2 of Stranger Things, and it is amazing. It is even better than the first series. In a certain way, I like it better because it's a development of the characters. You don't have to go through getting to know the people, establishing the world in which they live. but they go straight to the drama, to what the events in season 1, how these things have affected our heroes, our protagonists, and they're both children and adults, and they all have gone through transformations. There are a lot of separations going on. There are also a couple of new characters that are introduced, and boy, they're good. They're so good. You think that you can't really do that nowadays. You just bring in new characters, and get you as a viewer to like them just as much or even more as the original cast. Well, they pulled it off. They introduce a Mad Max, who's a girl very good at playing video games, and she's introduced as a girl who is wowing the kids, and mostly the boys at school, because she is amazing at Dig Dug. Now, that won't ring a bell for those of you that have been born, the people that are born around the year 2000 or even later. But Dig Dug was one of those classic arcade games that kids like me used to play at the arcades. Yeah, Pac-Man, Space Invaders. Dig Dug was one of my favorites. It was a fun game. I had a Dig Dug variant, or probably an unlicensed copy or a lookalike on I think the ZX Spectrum, and there was also Dig Dug on the Commodore 64. And I think with a friend of mine in high school, we programmed a version ourselves of Dig Dug on the TRS-80. And I learned a bit of machine language in order to provide the graphics. So I was the graphics guy, and my friend Frank was the guy who did all the programming. And Dig Dug was actually a fun game to program. It wasn't too complicated, and it was a lot of fun. I remember playing that on my TRS-80. So that was a Radio Shack computer. And I loved playing my own video game. So, but Dig Dug, you see there in the series, the original arcade version, and wow, it's so cool. And that reminds me, I don't know if you know Mike Spellacy. He used to be a podcaster with me. We did a couple of shows about Battlestar Galactica. Or was it something else? I don't remember. Star Wars, definitely. We did a couple of Star Wars episodes together. And Mike, in his spare time, is restoring these old arcade machines. So he bought a Pac-Man machine, and it's really the entire thing, screen and all. It's probably broken, but he knew that underneath that veneer, all the exterior of that Pac-Man machine, there was actually a galaxy. I need to Google that. I need to look it up. He's been chronicling his restoration process on Facebook. And I didn't know he had it in him, but it's so much fun to see this underneath this exterior of a regular Pac-Man machine. Nothing too special about it. There's actually the game is called Galaxian Update. He also blogs about it on his blog at spellacy.net. It's SPELLACY.net. And you see the updates on how this, and it's a fascinating adventure, and it looks just like the way I remember those machines in the 80s. So that's a little tip. Hats off to my friend Mike Spellacy and the amazing work that he does, and hopefully it won't be the last one that he's going to restore. Maybe Dig Dug could be in his future. I don't know. But anyway, check it out. So that's about Stranger Things. Really enjoying that series. And it's creepy. It's like the other day, I was watching something and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to watch this tomorrow because it's a bit dark outside and this gives me the creeps, this series. And then I came back from a movie that I saw this morning, which is kind of in the same vein. Man in Black, the latest, it's called Man in Black International. They stopped giving it numbers. I think it's the 4th Man in Black movie. And of course, the original Man in Black started with now I'm blanking out on the names, Will Smith and the other actor. the grumpy, hold on. That's what you get when you don't prepare your shows, Man in Black. I loved the first movie. Man in Black, with Tommy Lee Jones, of course. Tommy Lee Jones was a huge 90s movie star. And the original Man in Black was very quirky, very unexpected. We'd never seen something like that. It had very good special effects as well, especially all these aliens. So the premise of the franchise is the aliens are among us. We don't know. We always keep looking for UFOs, but actually the aliens have already been living among us for decades, and they look just like us. But oftentimes they have these, I don't know, transformation skills, and there is a special division of, it's actually not a division of the FBI or the CIA, but this is an institute in itself. It's very, very secretive. They have offices all over the world, and these men in black are actually secret agents that have the task of kind of keeping these aliens in line. Some of them are very benevolent, and they have stores and run restaurants and no trouble. But then there are always these aliens that want to invade Earth and kill people and take our resources. And the Man in Black are also licensed to kill. They are licensed to go after these aliens and either force them back in line or remove them from the surface of this planet. The first movie was so original and so funny, and especially the chemistry between Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith was unparalleled. I'd never seen something like that before. The kind of the grumpy old guy, and then the total newbie who is recruited by the Man in Black, and everything is new to him, and he is you. You're looking at this, you're discovering the universe through his eyes. It was very, very funny. The second movie, the sequel to this, was a disappointment. It felt like just a rehash of the things they'd done, but it kind of lost its spark. The humor wasn't as funny. The story was very forgettable. And then years later, they made a sequel, a third sequel, and I love that one. It actually it shows Will Smith going back in time to meet the younger version of Tommy Lee Jones, or it's another agent, I forgot. Anyway, there's some time travel, but it was fun. It was original. It kind of felt fresh again. It wasn't that much of a success at the box office. And now, many, many years later, Sony again wants to revive this franchise because money, because Sony. But and of course, I'd had high hopes. I heard some podcast reviews, some initial impressions, and people seem to like it. So I went to see it this morning in regular old-fashioned 2D. And, I had a good time. It was okay. It was unfortunately it wasn't as much fun as I thought it would be. So Man in Black International stars two great actors that I really enjoy watching, Chris Hemsworth, Thor, and Tessa Thompson, who also played one of the leading characters in Thor Ragnarok, which is my all-time favorite superhero comedy. And in that movie, there was great chemistry between the Hulk, between Thor, and Tessa Thompson's character. I kind of forget her screen name back then. And so it totally made sense to bring these two, or Chris and Tessa, together for Men in Black. However, I don't know if it's me, but I felt that there was very little chemistry. I mean, they're very sympathetic, and I like both of them, but the lines are kind of, the humor falls flat. There was just like, I wasn't even smiling for half of the movie. I was just okay, I'm just waiting for the fun to start. And then it never starts. And the ending is very much a kind of a repeat of the endings of almost all the Man in Black movies. So there's an end boss in a certain way. The reveal is nothing revealing, nothing surprising. Kind of saw it coming for a long time. And Liam Neeson also stars in this movie. And yeah, it kind of fits the universe, but again, he doesn't really add anything to it. And I think visually the movie is okay. There's a lot of CGI, as you can imagine, if you have aliens roaming around. But again, even the CGI doesn't look too convincing. There's a lot of obvious CGI. And it's okay, it's good. But I expected more of this movie. So is it a good movie? Well, it's okay. I have to say, even at one point, I fell asleep. That usually is a good indicator that the movie doesn't have what it takes. There's a lot of fighting, just hand fighting, not even with guns, but just fist fighting, and it's the international aspect of it. That's again, you show us that there are different branches all over the world, and you go to London, you go to Paris, but all that is just simple set dressing. What do you see of Paris? The Eiffel Tower, and only the Eiffel Tower. It's like you could have done something more. Give us French-speaking aliens or something like that. It's a waste of the idea. And it feels like a gimmick. Like, oh, let's just cater to the international box office by filming some stuff in London and filming it in Paris. But all you get to see is the usual stuff. Been there, done that. Mission Impossible did this. James Bond does this all the time. And Man in Black does it, but doesn't do it very well. So, I was a little bit disappointed. I expected more. But it's a fun popcorn movie. But there are many other movies that I think are more worth your time and your money. I would say wait for this to appear on Hulu or on Netflix or Amazon Prime. Let's visit the Peculiar Bunch. I'm not talking about aliens.
Catholics rock!
Here at the Peculiar Bunch, we're always talking about everything that concerns Catholics and Christians. Kind of the alien stuff if you're not one of them.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
Today I want to share part of an interesting conversation that I had yesterday while building Boba Fett's Slave One spaceship with Lego.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
You know that I've been doing these Lego streams, and it's a lot of fun. The thing that surprises me most while doing these Lego streams is the kind of conversations that I have with the people that are watching it live. I love my YouTube audience, and I love the interaction. It's even more interactive and more live than the podcast that I'm recording. Because I think people feel free to ask me anything. I just see their screen names. I don't see their real names. And people take advantage of the situation to just talk about almost anything. So we're talking about Star Wars, superheroes, Pokemon, Harry Potter, and also about faith. And just the other day, we were talking about mortality. I mean, I never expected, while building Lego, to talk about very, very, deep topics like accepting your own mortality, accepting the mortality and the fragility of your parents, for instance. So we talked a little bit about my father, who is still at the hospital, and we don't know. There's not much progress, so we're very concerned. And I honestly don't know if I will get my father back, or the father that he used to be. He's still my father, but his mental abilities are greatly diminished, and sometimes he has got these bright moments, but very often he's still in the foggy kind of alternate universe of the delirium. And then there were several people in the chat room that could relate to that and told me personal stories about their mother. There was one of the people watching that still felt guilty about not having done enough to help her mother, and then her mother died, and she still felt that she should have done more. There was another boy in the chat who shared his experiences with his father who died, and that he accompanied, and he was much more at peace. He was like, it's painful, but I believe that he's in a better place. And I recognize that topic of guilt and this feeling of inadequacy, especially as a child, because that's, even though I am 51 years old, but I'm still the child of my father and the child of my mother. And there is something about that relationship that makes it so different from other relationships you have in life. So you keep asking yourself, as a child, shouldn't I go the extra mile, or have I gone the extra mile, and do I do enough, and do I fulfill the role that I have to play as a child? And plus, you have the 10 commandments. Honor your father and your mother. What does that mean? What does that even mean? Does it mean you have to be there day and night? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I have limited time. Should I free up my calendar and stop working and be at the bedside of my father and support my mother 24 hours a day? How much is enough? And when is enough enough? And when do you have to protect your own health also? And I find that a very, very tricky topic. And it's the first time that I really get to think about, what does it mean, honor your father and your mother? Does it mean that you have to do everything that they expect you to do, or everything that I project on my parents, what I think they expect of me? Really, really difficult. And I think there is not a one answer to it, of course. There's no, in the Bible, you don't find any, one-size-fits-all proposal. Like, if you do this and this and that, then you're okay. It's something you have to discern, and I think the discernment is key to this. And how do you discern what you have to do? Well, discernment in that respect is comparable to other times in your life that you have to make tough decisions. Do I go left or right in my life? What is my vocation? How do I behave towards people that are asking me things? Is there a difference between a parishioner and my parents? As a pastor, I have a lot of experience in dealing with people that fall ill or that are getting problems with age and health or cancer and mortality. But do I make different decisions when it comes to my parents or not? Do I keep a certain professional distance, or what do you do when I feel that people are asking more than I can give? Tough, really difficult questions, and I think the discernment always requires you to think, to ask other people's advice. There's a lot of I think of benefit to find in talking about this with other people that have been in similar situations. And perhaps the most important thing is, don't start talking down to yourself. Don't think too negatively about the situation or about your own position in that. Guilt can sometimes be an alarm bell. It's like, my conscience is alerting me that I may not be doing enough. But that guilt has to be tested. You have to think, you have to pray about that. Is that really, is it projection? Is it someone projecting that on me, that guilt? Is it something, or is it real inadequacy? Is it really carelessness? And so the role of your conscience, I think, is very important. And if you pray about this, if you talk about this, if you come to the conclusion, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, then that may be a time that you have to step away from the feelings of guilt and inadequacy and stop blaming yourself or blaming your parents, or parents stop blaming your children. We do what we can, but we can't do everything. And sometimes in situations where especially health-related situations, there's only so much you can do, and sometimes you have to let go, hand it over to the doctors, or hand it over to God. But it requires constant evaluation and reflection. And I personally find that, and I also talked about it on the walk this week, I find that difficult. And I realized that my advice in the past to other people that have been in similar situations was perhaps a little bit too easy. Oh, just let go, just trust, and, don't blame yourself. Yeah, that's easier said than done. If it's your own situation, and it's your own parents and your own relationship with your parents, then wow, it's a lot more difficult to disentangle. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, that even as a priest, I'm also a son. So it's not obvious, and faith is not always obvious and doesn't have an easy solution to everything. But faith does give me pointers, and always gives me hope that no matter how dire the situation is, you can always entrust it. If you can't do enough, or you feel that you can't do enough, you can always hand it over to God and ask Him to do what you can't do yourself. Because none of us are superheroes. And none of us are wizards that can just flip their wands and everything is okay. And sometimes you will make mistakes and you will be inadequate, but it's not the end of the world. You do what you can do in a given situation, and the rest is up to God.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
Oh, reading. I don't do enough of it. What do you do when you want to read, but you can't find the time to read? It is one of my struggles right now because I want to do so much in my life. And I realize that if I want to do my work, filming, podcasting, social media, if I want to do my hobbies, gaming, building Lego, streaming, all that stuff, if I want to stay healthy, walking, running, staying fit, if I want to keep in touch with the TV series and the movies, I have to make choices. And if I want to do more reading, I have to make choices. I have to decide how much time per week I'm going to dedicate to reading books. And I've noticed that it's the easiest thing for me to skip is prayer and reading. And actually praying for a priest is also a lot of reading because we have the office of the hours. So that's a lot of recitation and reading of psalms and biblical texts. And it's the first thing. And you know why? Because it is the one where you really can't do anything at the same time. When I'm playing a video game, I can listen to a podcast in the background, or I can listen to some music. If I watch TV, sometimes I have my iPad near me, and I every once in a while just go and read something if there is a kind of a boring part in the TV series. So there are a lot of things that I can multitask. I can listen to audiobooks while I'm folding my laundry. But reading on paper or on the Kindle, reading prayers, I have to sit down and I have to shut out everything else. And it's that kind of focus that I find really hard. Because it's so easy when you sit down, and especially if you're reading on a mobile device that has internet access, how often don't I just quickly switch over to Facebook and let's just do, there's no likes. Let's switch back to, where was I in this prayer? And then I realized I wasn't even focusing on the prayer because I was wondering, would there be any updates on Facebook? So if you have any tips on how to do that, I know that some of my friends are literally making a reading appointment with themselves on their calendars. Like every day between 5 and 6, I'm reading a book. I used to do a lot of audiobook reading when I was running, but I'm not doing any running right now. And I think if I would, with these temperatures, it would kill me. I have to do a lot of walking, but then my phone is not strong enough to the battery doesn't last for an 8-hour walk. By the way, I did order my new phone, but Amazon told me that it's probably going to be delivered around the 20th of July. That is the day after I'm on vacation. Thank you so much for that. Oh, man. Anyway, patience. But again, reading is requiring you to make the deliberate decision to read. It's not something you do on the side. So I'll try to do that this week, so I can give you a proper update on my reading progress next week. And with that, it is time for whatever this jingle is announcing. I don't know. Is it science fiction, technology? Probably science fiction. I always have something to talk about when it comes to science fiction, right? I don't even recognize my own jingles. We'll just have to listen together. And it's got this long intro that I need to talk over. And I don't have anything to say. Oh well, it's my lot in life. We're made to suffer.
I see aliens. Little aliens from outer space.
And how are things in outer Plutonia?
How many times have I told you not to wear your space boots in the house?
For the shape I'm in, you can donate my body to science fiction.
Get your suit on! We need you!
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Star Wars, because why not? It's Star Wars. There's always something to talk about. First of all, the rumor, and this is just a rumor, it's unconfirmed, that even though the Skywalker saga will end with this last episode 9 of the trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker. It will be the end of the Skywalker saga, and new movies have already been announced. A trilogy by the writers of Game of Thrones, and the trilogy currently already in development ever since the end of The Last Jedi. It was announced that Rian Johnson was working on a new Star Wars trilogy. Now, rumor has it that at least the character of Rey, Daisy Ridley's character, will return in one of those future trilogies. Possibly the same way that Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Leia returned in this current trilogy. But what that tells us is that we are not going to completely drift away from the timetable, the timeline that was established with these 9 existing Star Wars movies. Because in a certain way, Episode 9 already exists. It's currently being edited, but it's already there. The story has already been told. And I'm excited about that, because one of the things that bugged me in the announcement that Rian Johnson was doing something completely novel, and it was going to completely step away of the timeline of the ships, the stormtroopers, the whole empire, and would do something completely in a different corner of the universe, in a different time frame. That bugged me. It was like, why? One of the great things about Star Wars is the continuity. It is the fact that we see Star Wars, we recognize Star Wars. It is a universe in which we have played, in which we have lived. We care for that universe. It's almost as if all of a sudden J.R.R. Tolkien would have said, well, hey, I've finished The Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to write a new story about hobbits, but it's on another planet. It's on the planet of Mars, and the hobbits are no longer this race living underground in a hole, but they're living on clouds in floating sailing boats. But believe me, it's still Middle Earth, but it's another planet in Middle Earth. You're like, okay, who cares? Really? Just bring us back to the Shire. I want to see the Shire. I want to go back. And even the Silmarillion is taking place in a certain way in a prequel universe of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but it's still Middle Earth, and there are still stories, some of those stories, that take place in the antiquity of the world that we get to know in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. That's why it's relevant. His whole creation story about how Middle Earth, Arda, was created is relevant to us, and I want to read it because a lot of that established universe returns in the fabric of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And I think Star Wars would make a capital mistake to do something completely new and disconnected of the movies that we already know and have. So I was really glad to hear that Daisy Ridley apparently has signed up for more movies than just this one. Mark Hamill has announced that this will be his last Star Wars movie. He's ready to step away from the world of Star Wars, and I totally understand it. And let's not forget that Mark Hamill had a very successful career outside of the world of Star Wars. So, that's great. I think that this next movie, that's going to be his last, and it's going to be good. And it's time to move on. But for Daisy Ridley, but also John Boyega, I hope that John Boyega will return in those future movies. Now, my theory is that this is not going to be in the trilogy that is up next. The trilogy with the Game of Thrones writers. I think that the rumors are very likely to be true that trilogy will take place in the ancient times of the Star Wars universe. And they will go back to a world that is familiar to Star Wars fans, the world of the Knights of the Old Republic. It will go back to the Middle Ages of the Star Wars world. And it makes sense to hire the Game of Thrones writers that are familiar with that kind of fantasy writing, in where they have to create a fictitious Middle Ages, because that's what Game of Thrones is. It's a kind of a romanticized, fictionalized late Middle Ages that they created. And if they can do it, and then they have a knack of telling stories that fit that feeling of Middle Ages, and I think that Star Wars could use something like that. And I would watch it, and we would all watch it, because a lot of the stuff that we see in the current Star Wars movie and stories harken back to these ancient times that we never have seen before. We've seen, the prequels, but prequels is recent history. if you look at the total timescale of the Force and the Jedi Knights. So bringing us back to those earlier days of the Jedi Knights, where Jedi Knights are like knights, like the Knights of the Round Table, could be very interesting narratively, but still connected to what we already know. And I think that Rian Johnson has had was asked to write a trilogy for 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when also the actors, John Boyega and what's his name, Poe Dameron's character, and Finn will all have aged and will be now at the age where they pass it on to a younger generation. For the actors, it's going to be kind of weird to step away from this trilogy and then be out of work, out of a job for, 10 years, and then coming back. And maybe their lives will have moved on. So who knows what is going to happen. But I can't wait to hear more about this. But for my part, I'm glad that there's going to be at least a little bit of continuity. And with that, I think it is time to wrap things up here on the show, on this week's show. I'm going to put this in my Google Drive so Inge can post this online. And in the meantime, I'll record my little after show for my patrons over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. And I'll also answer some of the questions that were asked while I was streaming this live in the chat room. So stick around if you're a patron, and see you next week. Okay, that's a wrap. Before I record the after show, quickly gonna post this online for Inge. I promised to put it online at 5 o'clock. That's now. Okay, I need to eject the card holder. I'm using these micro SDs. There we go. Replace this. Oh, okay, it's not a... That's a regular SD card. Wait a second. So in the after show, I'm going to tell you how I'm streaming this and what camera I'm using. Okay. Here we go. The Rodecaster file. Podcasts. Which one is it? This one. It's episode 112? No, 113 already. Okay. I think that's it. Open a new Finder window. Google Drive. Post-production. I'll just add a little bit of show notes. 0. A review of Stranger Things Season 2 and of the new Man in Black movie. What else did we talk about? We talk about the commandment, honor your father and your mother. How to read when you have... No, how to find time to read... No, how to how to keep reading regularly when you have so many other things to do. These are not the best show notes, but it'll do. What else have we talked about? Commenting on recent Star Wars rumors. I think that's it, right? Did we talk about anything else? Nah, I think that's it. Okay. I posted it. Let's alert her. Okay, right in time. Oops. Hard to type when you're doing so many other things. All right, let's go and... Oh, wait, no. Have to eject. Did it already upload? Wacht even hoor. With Google Drive, you can't see if it's uploading. It's very annoying. Okay, come on. Let me know. Er wordt iets gezinkt. Okay, so it's syncing. I'll be with the chat room in just a minute from now. Let's double check. I need to wait until it syncs. Otherwise, if I take it out, it may destroy the upload. That's not what I want. Okay. 113. It's a big file, of course. It's a WAV file. Still really haven't found a good way to bring this over. All right, I'm already going to scroll back to in the comments here for a sec. Come on, come on, come on, sync now. Why is it so slow? What is this? Google. Wait, if I click on this, can I see what it's doing? Remove, blah, 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 whatever. Updated 2 minutes ago. It says 2 minutes ago. It says it's synced. Well, hello? No answer. No, she's not responding. I'm just going to assume that it's synced. Communication is so hard. Oh, well. I'm going to take it out here. All right. There we go. I suppose it's already uploaded and it's now downloading from the cloud. Now, Inge is working on 2 monitors, so she's not looking at the one where I was trying to reach her. Okay, let's get going with the after show. Hello there, and welcome to the after show. I'm Father Roderick, and you are one of my patrons. because otherwise you wouldn't have access to this podcast. So thank you so much for your monthly support. I really appreciate it. And we have a few more new patrons, so welcome if this is the first time that you're listening to the show. I'm actually not sure how this works, but maybe I think you can also go back and and the feed will contain the previous episodes of these after shows. This is a show where I answer questions that were asked to me while I was streaming this live, and also sometimes some extra information. The first thing I want to share with you is something I didn't have time to share on the regular show, and that is to tell you about a very exciting new way to stream video to YouTube. I've always used either an internal webcam or one of those Logitech webcams you put on top of your monitor, or more recently my Canon DSLRs or the mirrorless Canon M50 to stream. And of course, the fancier the camera, the better the quality. The thing is, when I wanted to podcast today, I realized that both of my professional Canon cameras were at the rectory because I'm experimenting with the best setup for the Lego streams. I'm doing these sessions, these daily sessions, at least this week, where I'm building these big Lego sets, which, by the way, I'm not buying, but I'm renting them. This is such a cool idea. So it's a Lego store, not too far from where I live, and you pay like $15 a year, and then you can rent even big Lego sets for a couple of bucks, between €2 and €10 for the very big sets. And you can build them, and the only thing they ask you is to return all the sets in pieces. So I have to deconstruct it as well to the store. But you can take your time. You can take a week. You can take 2 weeks. And so that allows me to build these big sets, which I would never buy with real money, for just a few bucks. And I'm hoping to expand the YouTube channel in such a way that the audience that I have, there are always a couple of hundred people watching that they can tip me, so I can pay for those rental Lego sets. So, but I'm trying to find out the best camera setup there. So I didn't have a camera here, not even the webcams. I only had the built-in webcam of the iMac, the big 24-inch iMac, 27-inch iMac on my table. Unfortunately, this is already a 5-6-year-old iMac, so the webcam of the iMac is extremely low resolution. It's not even 720p. I think it is like 350p. So very, very low SD quality, and it's fuzzy. It's not even a very good camera. It's low resolution plus terrible colors, and I didn't want to use. Didn't want to go back to that. So I'm thinking, how can I stream in HD with what I do have? And then I realized there is a way to stream from my iPhone to the Mac, and then from the Mac to the internet. And so I usually, when I have a question like that, it's like, probably not, but you never know. I just type in that phrase. Is it possible to use my iPhone as an external camera? And lo and behold, it turns out there is a solution for that, and it is actually quite affordable with really good results. Now, of course, the iPhone has a pretty good camera, much better than the built-in webcams. Even the newest Macintoshes have cameras that are much worse than an iPad or an iPhone. So Ecamm, which is the Macintosh software that I use to stream this, I use it also for the Lego streams. The only alternative that I have is on my real PC that I use to stream games that I play, and I use OBS for that. But Ecamm is great software for the Mac, and they have a page dedicated to using your iPhone or iPad's camera as a camera source in Ecamm Live. Now, here's how it works. There is an app in iOS that you can download. There are two versions. There's a free version. It's called Epoch Cam, so EPOCCAM, Epoch Cam, or Epoch Cam HD, which costs about, I think I paid €8.99. So it's on the expense. It's kind of on the expensive end of things. But what this does is it streams via Wi-Fi or via USB the image from your iPhone camera or iPad camera straight into the Mac. And then on the Mac end, you have to install an app that is able to communicate with the phone, and then will transform that image to a camera source that the Mac recognizes as a USB camera. The free version only has very low resolution, so it's 640 by 480. So that is really low quality. I would only use that in emergency. So I went ahead and purchased the full version, and that's what I've been using today to stream to Ecamm. And if I'm correct, but I'm not sure, let me check. In Ecamm, you can choose both a camera source, but you can also say, hey, I want the audio to come from another device. Because with the professional version, of the full version of this Epoch Cam, you can also use the built-in microphone of the iPhone, but that, of course, is always a bit lackluster. But I've now set up Ecamm so that it uses the camera from the iPhone and it uses the audio from the Rodecaster. So the audio is really good quality, and the image is fine. It's not like a DSLR. It doesn't have the bokeh, so the blurred background, but it still shows you where I'm sitting. Now, the only other thing that I changed to stream this is I'm using the Beast Grip, which is kind of a holder for the phone. Can't really show it to you because, or if you're watching this on YouTube, because I'm filming with the phone. But it's a holder, and it has there is a wide-angle lens, high-quality wide-angle lens that you can screw on it and position it right in front of the camera itself. And so this wide-angle lens, and it's a really good quality. It doesn't have the kind of fish tank distortion or even the vignetting that you see on the cheaper lenses. This is a high-quality professional lens, and it's really in front of me. It's much closer to my face than the Canon was. But because it's this huge wide angle, it gives you a very good view of me sitting behind a microphone and also the background. So this works so well that I think this is something I can use in the future, even as a standard solution. This is really, really good-looking video, and of course the lens is good. The iPhone has a very, very good camera, and so the other advantage is this also works via Wi-Fi, so I can use this as a portable video source, and I can stream this. So imagine that I want to give you a tour of the rectory, or even I can't go to the church because the Wi-Fi doesn't reach all the way in the church, but I can go upstairs later on and show you the renovation that we're doing. We haven't started yet, but soon we will. We will be painting. We will be, creating a lot of things. For the patrons, I can give you these weekly tours of how far we are and show you around. And I wouldn't have to change a thing. I don't have to stream from the iPhone, which is always a hassle. But I can do this on the Mac, and it will connect to this phone no matter where I take it. As long as I'm on the same Wi-Fi network, I can take this camera everywhere. So I just wanted to share that with you because I didn't know it was possible, and I keep being surprised of the things that you can do with technology. Now let's go to the questions in the chat. We have a very diverse audience. We've got some people from Belgium, from France. And the first question that was asked to me is, where do you put all your Lego stuff? And I'm not sure if Dirk is asking me about the Lego sets, the things that I build, or the Lego videos. If you're asking me about the videos, they're all on my YouTube channel. I created a playlist that's called Lego. And I may want to rename that to Let's Build, because for video games you have Let's Play. That's kind of a easy tag to search for if you want to see people playing video games. And Let's Build kind of feels like the equivalent when it comes to Lego building. So check out that playlist. If you ask yourself, where do I put all my Lego, constructions? I have a number of them that I put on display, like the big Harry Potter castle, or what else have I built recently? I've got the speeder of Rey. And I created a little diorama behind it. So I will put those on display in my Star Wars room. Still have to do that one. I have already a Hobbit room and I have a Harry Potter room, but I'm still working on the TV room is going to be my Star Wars room. But it's completely empty right now, except for the TV. So I'll put those, a number of sets like the X-Wing fighter, Poe Dameron's X-Wing fighter, put them on shelves, but not everything. And the other stuff that I'm building right now, the Slave 1, that's a rented set, so I'll just return. I will disassemble it at the end of the week and return it to the store. Let's see, what else have we got in the chat? We've got some people from Poland, where it's also super warm. Austin wants to know if I can give you a live tour of the church that I'm currently stationed at. That would be difficult because I'm actually saying Mass in 15 different church buildings. So maybe that's something I will do in the future on Sundays after Mass or something like that. One of the reasons that you want to be subscribed to my YouTube channel, by the way, is that you get a notification if I go live. Oh, Mike reminds me about the show. In the main show, I talked about Mike Spellacy. And I was like, well, I did a show together with him, but which one was it? And it turns out it's Secrets of Babylon 5. Mike is our archival genius, so he remembers everything. So Secrets of Babylon 5. We never finished that podcast because I never finished watching Babylon 5. Yet another victim of my huge to-watch list. Oh boy. And Ari reminds me that Tessa Thompson, who has one of the roles in Man in Black, Tessa was also in Thor Ragnarok, and I couldn't remember the name of her character, and it's Valkyrie, now I remember. And she was great in Thor Ragnarok. Not so great. Well, she was okay. She was fine in Men in Black. But unfortunately, the comedic writing was kind of not good enough. They should have asked, Watiti, the director of Ragnarok, to write Men in Black. And Man in Black is not doing very well at the box office. And it's not just because it's summertime and there's a lot of competition. I think it's really because the movie itself is kind of so-so. I would give it a small 7 out of 10. Maybe a 6 out of 10 because I fell asleep. Xanderbrow also loves YouTube, and he likes doing Q&As. Because then he can just read comments and connect with people. That's kind of what I do when I'm building Lego. I just read the chat all the time and I answer questions. And it's always an engaging conversation because you're really talking to the people that are watching. Thanos, there's someone Thanos in the chat room, screen name, and says, "I hate being a father." Totally in character. And of course, if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, then you don't get that joke. Adam says, you will always be your parents' child, even if you live to be 90. That relationship never leaves us. In the main show, I was talking a little bit about my relationship to my father and my mother right now that my father is sick. Sander Brow also comments on that conversation, saying, I hate that feeling when you lose someone and think you could have done more, but in the end, it does make you grow. By the way, I'm 21 and in film school. Wow. Yeah, you've got your life and career ahead of you. If you are 200 years old, your mom will still call you her baby. Yeah, we'll see if I get to live 200 years. Yeah, but the thing that is, what can be destructive or really a nuisance is the could-have, would-have, should-have syndrome. And I have struggled with that for my entire life. Always these feelings of guilt. I could have done, I should have done that, I may have done that. If I had done that, what could have, should have, would have. And you're talking about something that is past you, and you can't change that anymore. So it's much more beneficial to look ahead and ask yourself, well, what can I do? What do I have to do? What is my current vocation? Because that is something, you can have regrets, but you can't turn back the time. But what you can do is learn from the past and discern what am I supposed to do right now. And always look ahead. If you make mistakes, ask for forgiveness and move on. And look at the future and stay hopeful instead of looking back and feeling regretful. Marguerite wants to know, what do you prefer in your life as a priest? Many things. There's not much that I don't like about my life as a priest. I like preaching. I like giving homilies because it's communication, and I love telling stories. That's something I enjoy. I like connecting with people after Mass. I hate it when I have to race to the next Mass and to the next church because I care for the people that I want to know my audience. I want to know who the community that I'm part of. I like the fact that my life is so different every year and every month and every week and every second. There's not a single similar day. And yes, there are times that I wake up on Sunday and it's like, oh, I got to go to church and what am I going to preach? But once I'm there, I don't mind. I enjoy it. My life as a priest, of course, is not run-of-the-mill standard because I do a lot of media work and I do a lot of travels. So traveling is also something that I really enjoy doing, but I guess that's not specific to the priest life. Also, I like my life as a celibate priest. I like to have time alone. It's kind of sounds strange. Like I like not having a family. It's not that I deprecate the value of a family life or having children or being a father, but I personally like the vocation that I've received to live a celibate life and to live my life with God without a family. So that's something that's a positive value in my life. All right, some other questions. KGTV asks, Hi, Father, how do you deal with sexual temptation? I struggle with that heavily, and I'm trying to change. Well, that in itself is already a good attitude. You try to change. Keep trying, I would say. Temptation in any form, but also sexual temptation, those can be very strong urges, strong feelings, because they're not just in your mind, there are also hormones involved, and it's the way we're programmed. If we wouldn't have that urge, then no one would be around on the planet Earth. You know, it's a you have to always look at it from the positive side at first. In itself, it is something that God has given us to help us to procreate and to have offspring and to have children. But of course, it is also, since it is also a physical force, and there are these hormones involved, etc., it's also something that has to be regulated. We're not just our urges. The world would be totally chaotic. So we're also invited to make choices and to direct that energy and those urges to what is appropriate. And the Catholic Church proposes us to live a life where sexuality is something for people that are married. It's a gift from one person to another. That doesn't mean that someone who is not married doesn't have those urges, and you just press like, oh, I'm just going to blank out, and I set that aside. But it is something that is. We can actually guide ourselves in do we follow up on those urges? Do we act on just our feelings, or do we behave like adults? And it's the same with food. You know, I love ice cream, but it doesn't mean I'm going to eat an ice cream every single day and I'm just going to eat junk food because I like it so much. I also have a mind that tells me, well, there are healthier foods for you to eat, and well, perhaps you have to kind of step away from those urges. And the most common way to deal with it is, first of all, don't worry too much about it. It is the best tip that I've ever had from a priest was, whenever you feel that you're tempted and you feel that you're going to sin or you may sin, bring it to God in that moment, because the biggest problem of sin is often not what you do, but it is that it takes you away from the relationship with God. You try to hide from God. It's kind of the same what Adam and Eve do. They hide from God. They're afraid because they feel like, oh, I did something. I stepped away from what God wants. So the best way to deal with temptation is always pray. Bring it in front of God, even though that feels really sometimes very shameful, and you're ashamed of yourself and disappointed in yourself, but immediately bring it back to God and say, God, I think I'm about to fall. I'm about to sin, or I've sinned and I wasn't strong enough, but I don't want to lose you, and you don't want to lose me. If you can do that, if you can develop that as a reflex, then God will help you to grow in dealing with those urges. And the most important thing, what you have to learn is not how to become this eunuch, or I'm totally asexual and I never have temptations or whatever. But what you will learn over time in dealing with this is, I try every time to stay connected with God. And the moment I sin, I immediately jump back to God, and I want to go run into his arms and say, Father, I sinned, but forgive me and embrace me and help me to live with this and to grow in this. And even if I will continue to fail in that for the rest of my life, please let me never fail in coming back to you. That is, I think, the most interesting and that is going to help you in all aspects of life. So never separate your sexuality and your struggles in that domain from the rest of your spiritual growth. Being an adult means I want to stay in a relationship, in a good, healthy relationship with the people around me and with God. And whatever is perturbing that is something that I need to work on for the sake of the relationship. Not because in itself those urges are evil and the devil and whatnot. No, that's the way we've been wired. But God invites us to use that energy according to his plan. All right. Next question. Are Michael and Gabriel part of the Old Testament? I always hear about archangels. Well, the archangels are revealed to us in the New Testament and in the book of Revelation. So we have a number of those angels that are mentioned there, although angels are also mentioned as messengers in the Old Testament. But we get revealed more about this world of angels that are pure spirits, so they have no body, pure spirits, as part of the New Testament revelation. And then, of course, there's been a lot of theology, a lot of great theologians and thinkers. Well, if we assume that these spirits exist because they're mentioned in the Bible so often, and even Jesus talks about them, what does that mean? How do we think that world? How can that even, So that there's a lot of interesting stuff to be found in theology. Brenda says, I tried at the end of my mother's life, I just tried to do what I felt was right, and that brought a great deal of peace after she passed away. That's good advice. Thank you so much for that tip. And then some people talking about Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'll return to that. Star Wars. Some people hope that they go back even before the Old Republic, maybe to the Sith Empire. Maxi is watching from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And the question of Maxi is, what did you think of the movie Rogue One? What was your reaction to seeing Darth Vader at the end of the movie? I thought it was amazing. That Darth Vader moment gave me the chills. It was so good. The only disadvantage is that then in A New Hope, Darth Vader looks a little bit old and very slow. So a little bit of discontinuity, but I wouldn't have missed it for anything in the universe, to seeing Darth Vader at full strength at the end of Rogue One. All right, well that's about it for today. Thank you so much for being a patron and listening to my babbling. Hope it was useful to you. And as always, rendezvous next week. Talk to you later. It's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to leave this very warm studio. I'm going home. Going to prepare myself some food, and tomorrow I've got the day off. Yippee! Cheers.